Simpsons Hit and Run. Man, this is a throwback. I got my first GameCube when I was around 12 years old. And the GameCube was more or less my first introduction to owning my own video game console that I got to keep, that was mine, and I got to build a library with. So the GameCube holds a special place in my heart. Now, what does that have to do with The Simpsons Hit and Run? Back around this time period, Grand Theft Auto was very big. And I can't remember which was the installment before Grand Theft Auto 4. I know it's not Vice City. I'm pretty sure it was Miami or something like that. Grand Theft Auto fans will know. Grand Theft Auto was big around this time. I remember like when I would go to school, kids would talk about like, oh, Grand Theft Auto, it's such a cool game. It was kind of like this edgy, like if you were a kid and you got to play Grand Theft Auto at this time, it was pretty cool because there was also a lot of controversy around this game at the time. You know, there was a lot of things in the news about violent video games and, how they're affecting our kids and all this other jazz. I was not allowed to play Grand Theft Auto. And I always wanted to, but I didn't have access to it. Then came along Simpsons Hit and Run. This was my Grand Theft Auto. I managed to convince my parents to buy me this video game. They were like, "Oh, Simpsons Hit and Run. What do you mean? Like, hitting somebody and like, that's not good." I'm like, "No. Sometimes you hit cars, and then you run away from the car. It's not a big deal." That spiel worked, and definitely pulled the wool over my parents' eyes there. And they ended up buying me this game. And Simpsons Hit and Run, this is such a good game, and it deserves a remaster. This was, in some senses, like taking inspiration from Grand Theft Auto. There was no guns. You didn't shoot anybody. There was no heists or anything like that. And there was no, criminal organizations that I remember from this video game. But the one thing you could do is you could drive a car and hit a pedestrian. And for some reason, I really wanted to do that because everyone was able to do that in Grand Theft Auto, and they're talking about that at school. There's something maybe a little bit sadistic inside of us for wanting to do this and making video games out of this. I don't know why, but people like them. I was one of those people. But this game was so much more than just being able to drive and run over pedestrians. It was actually a pretty awesome platformer. Like there were sections of this game where there was just platforming involved. Like you would get out of the car and you would go try to find coins, and it had a really cool collectathon element to it. Not only that, but the different types of vehicles you could find. Some are being ridiculously fast and way too fast for you to be able to realistically drive them in this world because everything was too tight and there was lots of turns and corners. But it was fun collecting the vehicles. It was fun collecting the coins, having to fight these little hornets with the cameras on them. It was just this really great video game, and I really enjoyed playing it as a kid. And it was one of those games that just felt like a pivotal moment for me, being able to play a game where there was just a bit more freedom to have moral freedom in a video game, like choosing to hit a pedestrian or not. There was something about video games that explored this moral aspect of our own characters as human beings, especially with mature rated video games and later on RPGs like Fallout and Skyrim. But like you could choose to be a good person or a bad person in a video game. And I think as a kid, that's really what I wanted. I wanted that moral ability to choose to be the good guy or the bad guy. And that wasn't something that was as apparent in a lot of video games earlier on. You could often be railroaded down this track of adventure, whatever that happened to be. And there was like a definitive good guy and a definitive bad guy. You were the good guy, and then you would go kill the bad guys, or you would do something to defeat evil and become the hero's victor. And you were railroaded down this path all the time. But the video games that were so interesting that came out in the aughties and the early 2010s were the games that allowed this moral decision you could make, where you could be the hero. You could be the hero, or you could be an absolute villain. And there was something about that that choice that made some of these games so appealing. And for me, the start of that was Simpsons Hit and Run. So thank you, Simpsons Hit and Run, for helping me form my moral code. This wasn't the only game that did that. And I don't run over pedestrians in real life. I would never do that. A great game. And if you haven't played it, totally worth playing if you want like a nostalgic throwback. It's a fun ride.